Hello friends, today's lecture is on culture and different cultural concepts and their role in agricultural extension. Introduction. The culture of a society is the accepted way of doing things in that particular society. It is the way in which people live, their customs, traditions, methods of cultivation, and so on. The culture of a society is learned by each individual member of that society. Children are not born with this knowledge. They learn by seeing how all the children and adults behave. As they grow up, all the members of their family or kinship group teach them about the customs and traditions of that group and the society. Later still, they may be initiated more fully into the society at ceremonies where they are taught traditional habits and customs and their expected role. Experience also gives the individual a better understanding of the behavior pattern of the community and may teach the individual how to change some of the traditional forms of behavior for the newer, more modern forms. Culture is not an accidental collection of customs and habits, but has been evolved by the people to help them in their conduct of life. Each aspect of the culture of a society has a definite purpose and function and is therefore related to all the other aspects of the culture. That is why due consideration of culture is treated as an important component while planning any agricultural extension programs. Changes in one aspect of culture may have an effect on other aspects of that culture. If changes in one aspect of culture are introduced, and these are likely to have an unacceptable effect on other aspects, then a program may have little chance of success. This is one reason why local leaders and farm people should help in planning an extension program. They will know whether or not the change proposed will be acceptable to the society. Definition of culture. Culture has been defined in a number of ways. Some sociologists and anthropologists include in culture all the major social components that bind men together in a society. Others take a narrow view and include in culture only the non-material parts. Some of these definitions are discussed. A.L. Colabar and Talcott Parsons defined culture as a complex of values, ideas, attitudes, and other meaningful symbols created by men to shape human behavior and the artifacts of that behavior as they are transmitted from one generation to the next. British anthropologist Edward Taylor defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other abilities and habits acquired by men as a member of society. Sutherland and Woodward said, if culture exists only where there is communication, then the content of culture can be ideas or symbol patterns. Culture is then an immaterial phenomenon only, a matter of thoughts and meanings and habits, and not of visible and touchable material things or objects. H.T. Majumdar states, Culture is the sum total of human achievements, material as well as non-material, capable of transmission sociologically, that is, by tradition and communication, vertically as well as horizontally. From all these definitions, we gathered that culture is the sum total of human achievements or the total heritage of man, which can be transmitted to men by communication and tradition. It is a way of life of the people in a certain geographical area. Lifestyle and social pattern of a society being the direct consequence of the accumulated heritage of ages past, distinguish and differentiate one community from another. Culture is therefore moral, intellectual and spiritual discipline for advancement in accordance with the norms and values based on accumulated heritage. It is imbibing and making us own the lifestyle and social pattern of the group one belongs to. Culture is a system of learned behavior shared by and transmitted among the members of the group. Cultural concepts. Some of the cultural concepts widely used in sociology are customs, folkways, conventions, mores and taboos, and rituals. Customs. Customs are socially accepted or habitual practice of long standing. In other words, customs are socially prescribed forms of behavior transmitted by tradition. Customs regulates the whole of man's action, his bathing, washing, cutting his hair, eating, drinking, etc. Customs are well established and difficult to change. Folkways. Folkways are approved forms of behavior for specific situations for a particular community. This is the expected way in which persons are to behave. It arises without prior intention. An observation of folkways is not a must, so violations of folkways are not punished severely. Conventions. Conventions are customs regulating more significant social behavior, something regarded as a normative example. There are specific conventions regarding wearing clothes for a specific occasion, such as during the funeral service, marriage and religious festivals, etc. Conventions are less violated than folkways. Mores and taboos. Mores are the conventions that embody the fundamental value of a group. Mores are defined as those of folkways which are essential to ethical or moral value of people. Mores are positive action enforcing what ought to be done. For example, saluting the flag, standing during the playing of national anthem. Taboo is a prejudice, especially in Polynesia and other South Pacific islands, that prohibits the use or mention of something because of its sacred nature. Taboos are also considered to be negative action envisaging what ought not to be done. For example, not smoking in front of elders. Rituals. Rituals are customary observance or practice. Rituals are also understood as the prescribed procedure for conducting religious ceremonies. It is the pattern of behavior or ceremonies which has become the customary way of dealing with certain situations. For example, performing the marriage ceremonies. Characteristics of culture. Some of the major characteristics of culture are: number one, learned behavior. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Sometimes the terms conscious learning and unconscious learning are used to distinguish the learning. For example, the ways in which a small child learns to handle a tyrannical father or a rejecting mother often affect the ways in which that child 10 or 15 years later handles his relationship with other people. Number 2, culture is abstract. Culture exists in the minds or habits of members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior ranging from the regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for so doing. Number 3, culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is patterned. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. Next, culture is the product of behavior. Culture learnings are the products of behavior. The experience of other people are impressed on one as he grows up, and also many of his traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behaviors. Culture also includes material objects. Man's behavior results in creating objects. Skills are required to make objects which human beings gradually built up through the ages. Culture is shared by the members of society. The patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or a few persons, but usually by a large proportion. Thus, many millions of persons share such behavior patterns as Christianity, the use of automobiles, or the English language. Culture is pervasive. Culture touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and a response take place. Second, culture pervades social activities and institutions. Culture is a way of life. Culture means the way of life of a people or their design for living. Klughorn and Kelly define it in this sense. A culture is a historically derived system of explicit and implicit designs for living, which tends to be shared by all or specially designed members of a group. Culture is a human product. Culture is not a force operating by itself and independent of the human actors. There is an unconscious tendency to defy culture, to endow it with life and treat it as a thing. Culture is a creation of society in interaction and defense for its existence upon the continuance of society. Culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute, special quality of culture, the fact of unending change. Language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmits to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. Although culture is transmitted in a variety of ways, language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. To conclude, culture is everything which is socially learned and shared by the members of a society. It is culture that, in the wide focus of the world, distinguishes individual from individual, group from group, and society. Role of culture in agriculture. Farmers and their families are members of the society in which they live. In any society, there are strong pressures on its members to behave in certain ways. For the farmers, some of these pressures will come from within. In all societies, there are accepted ways of doing things, and these ways are directly related to the culture of the society. Farmers' attitudes and desires are influenced by their society's culture. If it is customary in a certain community for farmers to scatter seeds and plow it into the soil, people will grow up to believe that that is the only correct way of planting. Even if the benefits of other methods are explained to them, their strongly held attitudes may make it difficult for them to change. Yet not all these pressures will come from the farmers' own attitudes and beliefs. Some will come from other people. Any society expects its members to behave in certain ways. No one is seen by others as an isolated individual. Each person is seen as occupying a position in society, and each position carries expectations with it. In some communities, an unmarried man is expected to work on his father's farm. Only when he marries will people expect him to start farming his own plot. A successful farmer may be expected to give food, money and shelter to relatives who have not been so successful, or to pay for his relatives' children to go to school. If a person resists these expectations, those around him will show their disapproval, because most people like to feel acceptance and approval from those around them. They tend to behave in accordance with such expectations. Therefore, learning the customs, folkways, moods, taboos, etc. of a group of people will help one to predict what they will do in a given situation. Without such predictability, expectations of what the other would do in a given situation, the result would be chaos in society. Culture is not static but dynamic because of internal and external forces. Development programs are such external forces which changes the culture of the society. Hence, it is important for an extension worker to understand this fact. The scientific understanding of the culture of the people among whom extension worker operates is basic to the effective performance of this function. For example, if caste structure is there in the village, study the caste system and function. Conclusion. The extension agent needs to understand and to be sensitive to potential social and cultural barriers to change. This demands the understanding of different cultural belief systems and practices followed by the community in the particular society. By carefully selecting what the extension agent encourages farmers to do and how to convey the message, their effect can be reduced. Winning the support of traditional community leaders, for example, may lessen the effects of tradition. Furthermore, by making sure that popular food crops are included in agricultural programs and that the recommended varieties are acceptable on grounds of taste and cooking quality, the extension agent can increase the likelihood of his advice being accepted. Extension programs aiming at introducing new methods should take into account the possible effect on the whole society and its culture, and not merely the technical results of the methods recommended.